The year is 69 AD, and the Roman Empire is in a state of civil war. In the previous year, the Roman legions stationed in the Rhine had put down a revolt in Gaul instigated by the aggressive tax policies of Emperor Nero. It was led by the governor of Gaul, Gaius Julius Vindex, who had declared his allegiance to support Galba, the governor of Hispania, as emperor of Rome instead of Nero. Although his rebellion was put down by the legions that were stationed along the Rhine under commander Lucius Virginius Rufus, the Praetorian prefect Nymphidius Sabinus, in a plot to place himself as emperor, promised bribes for the rest of the Praetorian Guard to declare their loyalty to Galba. Nero also discovered that the Senate had secretly tried him in absentia and was condemned as an enemy of Rome. With everyone's hand seemingly against him, Nero fled Rome and committed suicide. After consolidating his new authority as emperor in Hispania, Galba then marched on Rome to reclaim the throne. As Galba marched, he heavily fined or sacked any city which did not immediately submit to him. During Galba's slow approach, his rival claimant, Nymphidius, attempted to consolidate his authority as sole commander of the Praetorian Guard and took steps to eliminate potential rivals. He then declared himself the legitimate successor to Nero by claiming that he was the illegitimate son of Emperor Caligula. However, Galba's continued march counted for more than Nymphidius' mere presence, and thus the Praetorians killed him right before Galba entered Rome. Galba then entered Rome with one legion, Legio VII Galbiana, which would later be known as Seven Gemina. Rufus was replaced by Aulus Vitellius as the local commander in the Rhine. While in Rome, Galba became increasingly more unpopular as he wound up canceling many of Nero's reforms, which included benefits for many prominent citizens. Growing just as paranoid as Nero, he executed many senators and equites without trial under fear of assassination. Galba also refused to issue the men of the Praetorian Guard the rewards that Nymphidius had initially promised them, which Galba himself never promised personally. At the beginning of 69 AD, the Rhine legions revolted against Galba and declared their commander Vitellius as emperor. This frightened Galba enough to make him choose his imperial successor, and rather than elevating any of his closest supporters, he selected a young senator he adopted by the name of Lucius Licinianus. Many were angered by this decision, most notably Marcus Salvius Otho, who was governor of Lusitania and a close associate of Galba and had accompanied him on his march to Rome in the hopes that he would be named as Galba's successor. Feeling cheated, Otho then approached the Praetorian Guard and offered to bribe them with the rewards they had been promised if they helped him murder Galba and seize the throne. Galba and Licinianus were subsequently murdered by the Praetorian Guard in the Forum. Otho was recognized as the new emperor by the Senate. His attempts at restoring peace and stability wrecked by Galba's ascension were short-lived, as reports had arrived stating that Vitellius had dispatched his army south led by two commanders, Aulus Caecina and Fabius Valens, and was marching on Italy. Otho initially offered peace in order to avoid another civil war, even offering to marry Vitellius' daughter, but it was too late. The army being led was composed of two veteran legions, Legio 21 Rapax and Legio 5 Alaudae, along with a large contingent of Batavian auxiliaries, totaling around 70,000 men. The forces of Caecina and Valens then split in two. Caecina crossed the Alps and attacked Placentia, but were repulsed by the garrison. They then fell back to Cremona in order to await the arrival of Valens. On March 14th, Otho left Rome and marched north with his army, leaving his brother Titianus in charge of Rome. Among his general staff was Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, the former governor of Britain and the general who defeated the rebellion of Boudica. Otho's army consisted of Legio 1 Adiutrix, 13 Gemina, 14 Gemina, a hastily raised detachment of gladiators, and the Praetorian Guard. Despite Paulinus' experience, Otho decided to call his brother Titianus to act as his commander-in-chief. In order to distract Valens in his approach, Otho ordered a fleet of ships to launch raids against Roman settlements along the coastline just south of the Alps. One of the more notable victims of these raids was the mother of future proconsul and governor of Britannia, Gnaeus Julius Agricola. Before he arrived, Caecina attempted to ambush the Othonian forces at Locus Castorum, a village about halfway between Bedriacum and Cremona on the Via Postuma road. The Othonians were warned and their army marched for Locus Castorum, led by Paulinus. The Othonians prevailed and Caecina's troops retreated to Cremona. Here they were joined by Valens' army, which had followed a longer route past the Alps through Gaul. By then, Titianus joined the Othonian forces and took command. he decided to march on Cremona and give direct battle against the Vitellian army. Paulinus and other generals advised against this, as they had wanted to wait until the remainder of their forces had arrived from Pannonia. As Otho went back to their base at Brixellum to await the outcome, the two armies met on the Via Postumia, with the Othonian troops exhausted after a long forced march. The heaviest of the fighting took place where Otho's Legio I Aediutrix clashed with Vitellius' veteran Legio 21 Rapax, where the Aediutrix managed to capture the legion's eagle standard. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Otho's Legio 13 Gemina was defeated by Vitellius' Legio 5 Alaude. Legio I Aediutrix eventually routed, as well as being flanked by a force of Batavian auxiliaries. The 3rd century historian Cassius Dio writes that around 40,000 men were killed in the battle, although this is most certainly apocryphal. The Othonian forces fled back to their camp in Bedriacum, where they surrendered to the Vitellian forces and swore allegiance to Vitellius. Despite the fact that reinforcements were on the way, Otho refused to continue the bloodshed and committed suicide. Vitellius then entered Rome in a triumph and was officially recognized as emperor by the Senate. Concurrent to these events, the legions stationed in the east, commanded by Flavius Vespasianus, were in the middle of quelling the First Roman-Jewish War after the Jews began a revolt against Roman rule in 67 AD during Nero's reign. The remainder of Otho's supporters nominated Vespasian as a new candidate to overthrow Vitellius. While Vespasian pondered what to do, the historian Suetonius writes that Vespasian had heard of an old prophecy originating in the eastern provinces that stated that from Judea would come the future rulers of the world, a prophecy which he felt applied to him in his situation. Vespasian then resolved to challenge Vitellius, and was backed by his generals along with the governor of Syria and commander of 3 legions, Gaius Mucianus, who also had connections to many powerful Roman commanders across the empire. After leaving his son Titus in Judea to finish quelling the Jewish revolt, the Vespasian forces marched into Italy under the command of Marcus Antonius Primus, gathering more forces in the Balkan provinces, which had already submitted to Vespasian before his forces even reached them. The Vespasian forces consisted of 5 legions total: Legio III Gallica, 8 Augusta, 7 Claudia, 7 Galbiana, and 13 Gemina. When Vitellius heard of Primus' approach, he dispatched Caecina with an army consisting of 4 legions, 21 Rapax, 5 Alaude, 1 Italica, and 22 Primiginia, along with detachments from other legions and auxiliaries. As Primus' troops began arriving in Verona, Caecina was urged to attack before any more of his reinforcements could arrive. However, Caecina refused to do so, as he had attended to defective Vespasian and urged his army to do the same. His troops refused to follow him and had him imprisoned. Valens then departed Rome after being delayed by an illness. The leaderless Vitellian forces marched on Cremona. Primus' troops were stationed in Bedriacum and advanced to Cremona with a force of cavalry. After a brief skirmish, the Vitellian troops retreated to their camp while Primus brought up the rest of the army. The Vitellian forces drew up for battle along the Via Postumia, where the Othonian forces had been defeated merely a few months prior. Although they were reinforced by other legions including Legio IV Macedonica, they were still leaderless as Valens had not yet arrived. Regardless, the battle commenced, and continued through the darkness of night. When dawn broke, something unusual occurred which turned the tide of the battle completely. Primus' Legio III Gallica, which had served in Syria for many years, had adopted the local custom which involved saluting the sun as it rose. Upon seeing this, the Vitellian forces assumed the troops were celebrating the arrival of enemy reinforcements, and promptly lost heart and withdrew back to their camp, which Primus proceeded to take. Primus then attacked Cremona itself, which despite surrendering was brutally sacked and burned by the victorious troops. Primus was embarrassed by the incident and promptly forbade the keeping of Cremonan citizens as slaves, which had the unintended result of many being killed by their captors in order to evade punishment. Regardless, Primus marched into Rome, where Vitellius was captured and later executed, and Vespasian ascended to the throne, thus ending the first civil war of the Principate.